The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, founder, author, and financial advisor Mark Bernstein helps high-performing business owners turn their visions into reality. Through his innovative work and the Forward Focus Forums, Mark connects entrepreneurs to resources that fuel their success. Founders Forum is a radio show and podcast where entrepreneurs share their journeys, revealing the lessons they've learned and the stories behind their success. Join Mark and his guests for a mix of inspiration, valuable insights, and a little fun. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, America. How are you? We very rarely have a false start on the show, but we had one this morning, little technical issue. So I'm saying good morning again, and even happier to do it the second time. It's a weird day today. We have a government shutdown in the country, and there's probably a lot of implications on that, and we don't do politics, so we're not going to talk about that. But it's very sunny today in Philadelphia, as supposedly it always is, but it's not really true. But it's a beautiful day, and I have a guest that I'm excited to talk to today, so it's a great day. So Vera, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, and I'll introduce Vera formally in a minute. But on our last show, we were talking about commitment, and if you can listen to the last show, I won't go through the whole story, but it had to do with committing to a nutritional plan and calorie tracking, and that if you exclude one of the parts of the plan, according to a particular coach, you wouldn't be fully committed. There are different ways to look at that, but in my case, I looked at it and said, I'm going to need to do that if I'm going to hire this particular coach. And commitment is a core principle in our business. We want clients who are committed, and we promise 100% commitment to them. And so it's a word that we use a lot. And I was just wondering, Vera, your impressions of commitment and what that means to you.
So when I think about committing to something, it's having a goal in mind and then adjusting the process to get there and just sticking with it. Even if you don't like it sometimes, it's just doing it and not thinking about it.
So we talked about this a little offline. So in a way, what you're saying is you're committed to the goal, but the process can change.
The process can change and has to change oftentimes.
I agree. You have to be able to pivot without question.
And if something doesn't work, you have to look at what you're doing and have to really think about if that really gets you to the outcome that you want.
So specifically to the nutrition or diet thing, it could be, hey, I'm not going to count calories, but I'm going to look at portion size, or I'm going to exercise more, or I'm going to do it a different way, as an example.
Yep, exactly. Got
it. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that. So that's a different outlook on commitment, and that's why I wanted to ask it again, which is great. So Vera Hempel is CEO and co-founder of KissUX and Cactus Club Creative. Vera was born in Munich, Germany, and has been an entrepreneur since she was 18, helping businesses with their marketing and translating books before moving to the U.S. in 2017. Did you speak English your whole life, by the way?
I had to learn it in school.
Okay.
But I think I know where you're going to go.
Well, your English is like perfect.
My accent.
Well, no, I was going to say I almost don't hear it.
Oh,
I think you're remarkable.
Well, thank you.
And I'm thinking you've only been speaking English as a primary language for not very long.
Well, so this is a little side story.
Okay,
so
and then I'll finish your introduction.
You'll finish my introduction. So I'm actually a trained actor, and I went to theater school.
We wanted to bring this out anyway, so this is good.
Yeah, this is part of the story. But when I moved to the U.S., I took a class in L.A., which is where I lived when I moved to the U.S., and it was a class in accent reduction, and they taught you how to speak with an American accent. And I can tell you if you want to know.
How to?
Yeah, how to speak like an American.
Oh, how? I need to learn to speak like an American.
They make you hold your upper lip, and you also, this is another way of doing it, but you also pretend like you have some hot potato or some hot thing in your mouth.
Really?
Yeah. And you just don't move your mouth as much as you would for example,
I'm watching. You're conscious of how
German.
your mouth is moving as you're talking.
Not anymore, but
Okay,
yeah, that's how they teach you.
Interesting. So the stiff upper lip thing is an American
It
deal.
is,
How about
yes.
that? Maybe that's where it came from. That's really interesting. Well, we diverted, but it was a good diversion. So in 2021, Vera teamed up with UI UX designer Kuba Kerner to launch Cactus Club Creative, helping startups turn ideas into products and brands. Their work soon revealed a bigger challenge: businesses struggling to prioritize accessibility, which led them to found KissUX in 2023 to help bridge the digital divide with agentic AI so everyone can be part of the digital world, which is, I understand that because we've had the opportunity to talk about this a few times. Pretty cool. So welcome again.
Thank you.
And I mentioned that your entrepreneurialism started early. Tell us about that and how you think that's impacting what you're doing today.
So I think when I was younger, 18, 19, I was fresh out of high school, and I was trying to figure out life. Was I going to go to college right away or travel? I thought, well, I have to make money somehow. So I looked at all the skills that I had, which was language was one of them, being able to speak English, being able to teach people, and being able to dive into, what it really takes to get someone to understand and speak a language. And so I started teaching people English, and they call it a tandem partner, where you sit down with people and you talk to them and you talk about the grammar, but it's more a conversational way of teaching people how to speak a language. And then I found out that I was also really good at translating because of that. And I started translating books, and I then got to writing blog articles for those authors, and I started working on websites and on content. And so it became, I wouldn't have called it entrepreneurship back then, but it definitely was my own small business that I ran, and it was word of mouth, and it got me through college.
Well, that's all I do is talk with entrepreneurs all day long, most days. And, I think entrepreneurialism often starts when people don't realize it. It's just doing what you have to do get wherever you want to go.
Exactly.
I was doing entrepreneurial things as a kid, and I didn't call it that or think of that, but, wanted to make some money, go out and wash some cars or mow some lawns or deliver newspapers or whatever it was, So yeah. And I'm sure that experience, though, is helping you in what you're doing today.
It is. And thinking back when I was younger, I think entrepreneurship wasn't that big of a thing. It was hard to be an entrepreneur. It not to say that it's not hard now, but I think when you're older and you have to pay your bills and you're not just doing it to buy nice clothes or go on a nice vacation, you're actually doing it to survive and to pay your bills and your water bill and your phone bill, then there's more pressure in succeeding.
I do think the trend is towards entrepreneurialism these days with younger people in particular, but also people that are older leaving the corporate world because big business is dominating in a lot of ways, yet there is a very, very large number in this country, at least, of entrepreneurs. It's a much larger number than those that even work for large companies, if I'm not mistaken, at this point. So it's definitely growing. What had you move to the United States?
So when I was in theater school, and I thought, well, I'm only playing theater. I'm gonna try to
go to Hollywood.
Exactly. So I did not plan to stay there, but I did, and and then moved to, that was in 2016, 2017, and then moved to Pennsylvania, to Philadelphia in 2019.
How did acting go? Did you get any gigs?
Well, when I was in Germany, I was playing a lot of theater, and I did commercial acting.
Oh, great.
In the U.S., not so much, just because when I got here, I wasn't able to work. I wasn't allowed to work. I was more here for educational purposes.
Gotcha. Oh, so you might not have stayed if you wanted to go back to acting.
Mm-mm.
Right, gotcha. Interesting. But you stayed.
I did.
Okay. So tell me how you got to the idea of teaming up with Cuba and launching the first company of Cactus Club Creative.
Yeah. So Cuba and I met in 2020, right at the height of the pandemic. Well, before that, but we figured out that, or we found out that we were really good at working together. And Cuba had a couple of projects that he needed my help with. He's a designer, as you said, and I was good at content writing. And so we built a couple websites together, wrote the content. And then in 2021, we founded a company. And the story behind the name Cactus Club is actually because I thought that I needed to found my own company for copywriting and content writing. And it was supposed to be called Copy Cactus.
Ah, okay.
But then we got a larger project and we started working together again. And that's how we founded Cactus Club, kind of out of necessity. We didn't plan to found a company. It wasn't something that we had, talked about a lot. It was just something that kind of came out of the necessity of having an entity to start working on bigger projects together.
And I understand Cactus Club is up and running and plugging along, right? And then you came up with KissUX.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe just describe the differences and why you felt you needed to start that company.
So KissUX started as an idea in 2023. And okay, I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Okay. I love secrets.
We've
That's
actually
great.
never told anyone this. So in the summer of 2023.
You're only telling this to me. Nobody else is
Nobody
gonna hear
else
it.
is going to hear it.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
Okay, got
it. In the summer of 2023, we were thinking about some business development opportunities and how we could creatively get more traction. We were up and running and we were making revenue, generating revenue, but we wanted to grow. And so we were thinking, okay, well, our target audience usually is startups. But what if we started collaborating or cooperating with incubators and accelerators, institutions that have access to startups and may want to help these startups grow. And the best way to get into an incubator is with a startup idea. So now Cuba and I had been talking about this accessible UI builder for some time because we had seen problems with accessibility and usability in a lot of the applications and the websites that we had created, that we had to mull over and do again because that wasn't built into the process the first time. So we took on a lot of the work that was done before and we had to redo it. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create that company, but we also wanted to find a way of growing Cactus Club. So we thought about both aspects. How can we create KissUX inside an incubator and also as Cactus Club help the other startups that are within that ecosystem with our expertise in usability, accessibility, design, and content to grow and to get to a place where they're able to raise funding and then go on with the journey.
So I always like to ask about challenges you've had, and we do need to take a break in like a minute. But tell me what kind of challenges you had. Probably more once KissUX was started, I would think. Tell us about that, and then after the break, we'll talk about how you met those challenges and the strengths you've acquired from that. Yeah.
So for KissUX, because we are a technology startup, we are not a services company, but we are building it from the ground up. We do have experience in running a business, but running a startup, a technology startup, is way different than running a services company. And the biggest challenge has been getting funding so far.
Right. Yep.
And we've bootstrapped it, most of it. We have raised some funds from Ben Franklin Technology Partners,
Nice.
and we've gotten some grants.
You
But
know Angelo Valletta then, right?
yeah,
So
we're in his
He's going to be
portfolio.
on our show soon. Yeah. So
Yep.
nice. And that was a help to you.
That was a huge help getting into the Ben Franklin Technology Partners portfolio, and then also being part of the Penn State Launchbox in Berks County.
Right.
That was huge help, and they're still helping us.
Nice,
So
nice.
we've gotten not only monetary support from them, but also reviewing pitch decks and doing all of that.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll come right back and talk about what you learned and the strengths that you acquired through that.
What's holding you back from your next big move? At Workshop Strategy, we're more than just advisors. We're partners in your success. We don't just hand you a plan and walk away. We roll up our sleeves and work alongside you to build a strategy that drives growth, strengthens leadership, and makes operations more efficient. If you run a medical practice, pharmacy, healthcare organization, or any healthcare business, we create solutions tailored to your needs and goals. We're here to help you take your business to the next level. Let's lead with innovation. Let's set bold goals, and let's achieve them together. Visit workshopstrategy.com to get started.
We're back on Founders Forum with our guest today, Vera Hempel of KissUX and Cactus Club Creative. And so we were talking about getting funding being your biggest obstacle. What strengths have you guys acquired? And by the way, I think your presentation skills, being an actor, may have contributed in your help in getting funding, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think the strengths are perseverance. You just,
Right.
That's the commitment. You have to stick
Commitment.
to the goal. Yeah, you commit to the goal, which is, the goal is not to get funding. The goal is to help aging adults and people of underserved in underserved communities access technology the way that everyone else is.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm not sure that was clear from what we talked about before.
Yeah.
So that's great. Right. So it's your purpose is your mission, which
Yep.
is where your commitment comes from.
Yep.
Got it. So, so let's talk about. I'm going to jump to this. I usually wait a little bit, but let's talk about your 3-year vision, because that's going to. Let's talk about the future and where you're going with that, and what kind of challenges you have to meet there. So, Vera, if it's October, which it now is, of 2025, and it's 3 years from now, October 2028, we're looking back on the last 3 years. What would have to happen for you to feel that was a successful 3-year period in your businesses and or your life, if you'd like to address that as well?
3 years. I think the goal is that we're committed to is to impact the lives of millions of people with our digital literacy technology, and help people access technology better and more secure. And then marry the two companies in a way that makes sense. I think back to the challenges that you were asking me about, finding a way to do both businesses under one umbrella, in a way that makes sense, that doesn't have two separate entities, not in the legal sense, but in the sense of, like, how do you talk about what you do? That's oftentimes a challenge to explain to people, hey, we don't only develop websites and applications, but we're also in the business of creating more usable and more secure user interfaces through AI, through technology.
You just did that very well.
I know, right? just attained my 3-year
Right. There you
goal.
go.
Fast forward.
Well, you'll be able to listen back to this and take it down.
Yeah.
And now it's a brand. That sounds to me like branding. Like
Yeah.
how do you make that your brand?
Yep.
Get that out there and rethink about what the name of the company should be, the collective company would be, right?
Yeah.
And do you have employees, or do you have outsourced people, or both?
So on the Cactus Club side, we have Kuba and I, and we have a team of developers, and we're lucky to have them. We're small and lean and efficient, And on the KissUX side, we are a team of 6 people, co-founders, who are all experienced, very experienced, and some of them have over 25, 30 years of experience in the AI the AI space. So we're very lucky to have partnered up with brilliant people that help us really see that mission and vision through.
Gotcha. So that's important. So we've talked about, obviously you two weren't able to do this just on your own. Neither is almost anybody else or almost anyone else. Believe it or not, we only have a little more than 5 minutes left. But tell me a little bit. Are you developing a culture for those companies? There some? And how would you describe the culture that you're developing?
So, I think it all comes down to the experience that people have working with you, but also it trickles down to how people are experiencing your technology, how people are experiencing working with you as a client. And I think all in all, we want everything to be transparent and we want to foster trust because the product we're developing requires people to trust us.
Right.
And that's the most important thing about working with people in, the work environment as employees, as co-founders, but also when you're working with your clients.
And I assume this is something you talk about with your co-developers and co-founders and everybody, right? It's something that you put emphasis on. Yeah,
and we're lucky to have a customer experience professional. She's a specialist in customer experience on our team. And so we talk about this a lot.
This is in KissUX,
yes,
I would imagine, right?
Yeah. So we talk about this. We talk about this quite a bit. That the feeling that you have around building your product and building your team is the feeling that you want to convey to people using your product and engaging with your company.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad I asked you the question because, in this world of high tech and high touch, in the past, you and I have pretty much talked about the technology and the technical aspects and the structure of the company, but not as much about what you're really trying to get across as a feeling. Ultimately, is what you're selling.
Yep.
Which is really interesting to know that. And I think that's important because some people just build technology companies to sell them, but you have a mission and you have a vision as to how you want people to be able to use technology, which is a lot more than just the technology itself. Which
not
is
to say
cool.
that we don't want to sell it,
of course,
but
you're in business.
Of course.
No, that's wonderful. We are, believe it or not, almost out of time. So a couple other questions. I know you're a reader. What do you like to read, Vera?
Right now, I am reading The 4 Agreements.
That's a great book.
Yeah, it's my second time reading that book. And I really just like the message of it.
I do too. And I want to reread it now that you've said that because to me, almost everything you do in life involves agreements.
Yep.
And there should be agreements. People should be agreeing. There shouldn't be arguments. There shouldn't be, difficult conversations with employees, an example.
Yep.
As long as if there are agreements, everybody knows what the engagement's about and what the rules are about, right?
Well, the first agreements are the ones that you have with yourself. I mean, the first agreement in the book is don't take anything personally.
Right.
Which is the hardest one.
It is a very difficult one. I've always had trouble with that one myself.
Yeah.
But it's another good reason for me to reread that. So thanks for the reminder. And besides that, I know in your very mature self today, if you were talking to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself, Vera?
Oh, I think it comes back to the commitment. I think just do it because I'm honest. I do not like the word commitment.
We talked about that.
We talked about this.
You struggle with it.
I struggle with it, but I think I would tell myself to just do something. Just do something, and it's going to be fine.
Well, that's an agreement with yourself, and it's also a commitment, right?
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. And any other thoughts around that?
On the agreement part, I think a lot of young people are struggling with not knowing which direction they want to go in, and I've heard all the stories. And I think just doing something, you can always change later. You don't have to do something and do it for the rest of your life.
Right.
Because you're going to change too.
Get started.
Yep.
Right.
Just get started. Exactly.
Just move.
And adjust the process.
I would say move forward. Doesn't matter. You could take a long, you could move forward and take the wrong right turn and have to turn left.
Turn around.
Or turn around, but move forward.
Yep.
I'm going to throw you a curveball question we hadn't talked about. Are you a music listener?
I am, but if you want to know my playlist, it is mostly children's songs.
Interesting. Explain. I'm glad I asked that question because of your daughter.
My daughter, she's almost 8, and she likes to listen to a band called Puppy Songs that I think has around maybe 5,000 listeners on Spotify, and they're always my number one artist at the end of the year. And they're probably thinking, why is this lady listening to us year over year 20,000 times to this one song?
Well, you're reminding me of when my kids were young, and that's mainly what I listened to as well. And I remember Barney, on TV, and I remember Raffi, a singer of songs, and I remember Trout Fishing in America. I don't know if you know that one, but that was there's a kid show on the University of Pennsylvania station here in Philadelphia. I think it's syndicated, and one of their big artists was Trout Fishing in America. And I'm a musician, so that was hard, but I actually learned to enjoy a lot of the music, so I get it. So I'm glad I threw you that curveball and got you smiling too, which is great. We can land on a happy note. And I think that's about it today for Founders Forum. So thanks so much, Vera, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys in the studio, our engineers today, TJ and Eric. And thank you all for listening. And we'll see you next week again on Founders Forum.
We hope you enjoyed your time with Founders Forum and that you found value to take with you throughout your day. Join us again next week for another episode of Founders Forum on WXKB 1039 HD2.